Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we'll be looking at the best defenders to own in your FPL teams for Game Week 1, ranging all the way from those £4.5 million defenders up to the very premium ones. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you are new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, in today's video, we are going to look at the best defenders at each price point for your FPL teams in Game Week 1. Of course, a lot can change during pre-season, and by the time you're watching this, obviously, another option might emerge, or some of these might look slightly better or worse, but hopefully they'll still be useful. And obviously, because we do it at every single price point, it will hopefully serve you for whatever kind of defender you are currently looking for. I am going to start at £4.5 million defenders, just with fours. We might as well just wait and see for the rest of pre-season, and maybe a seriously good £4 million options such as Barco of Brighton might pop up, but I feel like we don't need to look at the stats. You just want one that starts and might have some attacking threat. So we're going to start with the analysis at 4.5 million. I just want to say all of the data used today is courtesy of Fantasy Football Hub, who I'm partnering with for another season. If you want to get 50% off from Fantasy Football Hub right now, get access to all of the stats that I use in this video and much, much more. You can do right now if you use the link in the description for as little as £3.25 a month it works out as, which is less than a Starbucks, less than a pint of beer if you live in London, and you get access to pretty much everything you could possibly need to help you win your mini leagues and also to get a very good rank as well. So do check them out. It supports me, but also look at all of the stats that you have available to you. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm starting with the £4.5 million defenders. In this list here, you can see that there's pretty much, apart from Burn and Livramento, and I'll explain why, there's just like one defender from each team because it would take far too long to go through every single defender. For example, I've got Anderson, but Gay is absolutely fine as well, but there's no need to look at both. I'm just looking at what could a Crystal Palace defender look like. So in the situation where there are multiple, I've just gone for who I think is the slightly better option from that team. But of course, there are so many players to consider. Very briefly for this table, I've tried to keep it very simple throughout this video. You've got the name of the player, the starts that they had last season, their non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90, which gives us a bit of an idea about their attacking threat, both goal threat and assist threat put together. The defensive data for their team from their Premier League ranking last season. So first would be the best defence, 20th would be the worst defence. Their projected points for the first 8 game weeks, their fixture difficulty for the first 8 game weeks, and then also a Raptor ranking. So let's start with the player that had the most attacking threat last season, and it is Davis of Ipswich. Now, of course, this attacking data was from the Championship, and we're probably not expecting that to continue in the Premier League this season, but he had 0.31 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 and 21 assists. It's bonkers. I've never seen anything quite like it from a defender. Now, of course, that won't continue, but I point to Alfie Doughty last season, who had quite a few attacking returns for Luton, and you only need 1 or 2 clean sheets dotted in there. If you can get, even if it's like 8 to 10 assists or 6 to 8 assists, he still could be really good value at points this season, and I wouldn't disregard him just because he plays for a promoted team, but I would maybe say it's a bit more of a wait and see for me. You'll see it in a second when we go to the next graphic. He rotates very well with some defenders, but I do just think I'd rather go for a more secure player that you know can do it in the Prem, and also that you know plays for a slightly more resolute defence. So let's see what happens with Ipswich this season. They might be absolutely brilliant, but you could probably wait and see. The next is actually a Brentford defender, and again, you've got lots of choices from Brentford, but Rico Henry's back fit now, and maybe this is going under the radar. His attacking threat, obviously from last season, you can maybe disregard because he only had 5 starts, but he's always been pretty attacking. He's decent for bonus points when he gets forward. Brentford were actually the 6th best defence in the Premier League last season. The issue I've got with Brentford, and the reason that I don't think Henry for me is right up there in sort of the top 6 or 7 defenders, is just simply because Brentford's fixtures aren't very good over the opening 8 game weeks. And I just think, again, maybe a bit more of a wait and see once the fixtures start to improve. But Rico Henry, if you can rotate him in and out, could be really great. We then move on to a couple of players that I would put up there as some of the better 4.5s to own. Dunk has just got consistently good attacking threat. Every season he scores a couple of goals. He's got a long shot in him. He's great in the air as well. And Brighton were actually the 8th best defence last season, despite having so many injuries. Now, they're under new management. Let's see what sort of system they play. Let's see how attacking they are, how resolute they are defensively. But Dunk just consistently under whoever the manager is just gets chances. And I quite like the idea of going for him. But the issue you've got is, as you can see here, the fixtures are, according to Fantasy Football Hub, even more difficult than Brentford. So I kind of feel like with Dunk, again, it's a bit more of a wait and see. wait for the fixtures to improve, and then if Brighton look good, then you can, I guess, make a transfer for Dunk. So I like Henry and Dunk, but the fixtures just aren't quite there for me. A team that the fixtures are there for, and a player that had insanely good attacking threat last year, is Dan Burn. The issue we've got with Dan Burn, I suppose, is that if he's playing in the left-back role, they've got Livramento, unless Livramento's playing right-back. They've got Lewis Hall. Emil Kraft can play there as well. They've got a few options. And I'm just not sure that if Dan Burn is going to play left-back all season, he's fully nailed. However, both Botman and Lascelles are injured until we're thinking around Christmas time, maybe January. And outside of that, it's really Fabian Schär. Yes, they can play someone like Emil Kraft in there, but they're unlikely to. So as things stand, if they don't make any signings, it's going to be Fabian Schär and Dan Burn probably as the two starting centre-backs. Now, this is a good thing because it'll make him ever so nailed if they don't sign a centre-back because there's no one else that can really play there. But it does also reduce a lot of his attacking threat that he might have shown at left back. But he is still 6'7" and he does still go up for corners. So I really like Dan Burn as a pick. I've put him in third just due to slight... I'm not quite sure where he's going to play if they sign a centre-back. And if they do sign a centre-back, is he fully nailed? That's the only reason that I've not put him even higher. Because if he starts every game with the fixtures that they've got, you'd probably argue he's maybe even the best £4.5 million defender. Really decent attacking threat last season. He got a few goals. So I like Dan Burn. I'd like to just have a bit more clarity around how that Newcastle defence is going to line up at the start of the season. I've put Disasi in here. Chelsea fans are either going to love this or hate this. I have spoken to so many Chelsea fans. No one's got an idea who's going to start. Maybe Colwill should be the one in there because he's obviously like their golden boy. He's back fully fit, we think, at the moment anyway. Maybe Colwill's the one to go for. I mean, Badiashile, I don't really know who's going to start for Chelsea. Chelsea fans, let me know down below who you think. Disasi was relatively nailed last season, but again, under different management. So I'm basically just saying, if you can work out which Chelsea defender at 4.5 million is going to start pretty much every game, maybe they're worth going for. And Disasi did show a little bit of attacking threat last season. My concern there, though, is even if we know who's going to start in Game Week 1, are we confident that they start every single game? And if you're not, why would you not go for one of these other options that play for equally decent defences and that you know will start every single game? So I just think Disasi for me and any Chelsea defenders probably not worth the risk. Anthony Robinson is one of my personal favourites because I just think he's an exceptionally good footballer and he was so good last season. He started 37 games for Fulham out of 38. A little bit of attacking threat. Fulham weren't a particularly good defence, but I think they'll improve this season. And if you can rotate him well, the fixtures at certain weeks are very good. In Game Week 2 and Game Week 3, they play against Ipswich and Leicester. So if you can work out the best weeks to play Robinson and you can rotate him in, I think Robinson could be brilliant. Lots of people mentioning Castagna. Castagna's just slightly less nailed than Robinson. Robinson's going to start pretty much every game for Fulham. So I really like him as an option. One of my personal favourites, but if I was to give you a non-biased review, he's probably like the 4th, 5th, 6th best defender at that price point for me. We then move into two really solid defenders that so many people are looking at, which is Konsa and Anderson. Both of them have exactly the same non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90, and they both play for, I think, top 8 defences. Based on the data last season, though, Palace were the 5th best defence in the league for expected goals conceded, and Palace were the 4th best defence in the league after Glasner came in and took over. So I would say that based upon the data that we have available to us, Palace are maybe a slightly stronger defence than Villa. The only concern I would have with going with that logic is Villa had so many injuries last season, and they were playing in Europe, whereas obviously Palace were. Now, Villa are playing in Europe once again, but they're in the Champions League, which makes it a little bit easier just due to the turnaround and the time frame. But still, that might have an effect on them. And if they keep getting injuries in that defence, you just don't know whether they're going to be able to keep the amount of clean sheets required. With Konsa, you also don't know if he's going to play right back or centre back. So maybe Anderson, just for safety of minutes, no Europe, and also this incredible defensive data, I feel like he could be a very, very safe, easy option to pick. And he does have the ability to not only score goals, but create goals as well. His expected assists are always pretty good because he's got that ability to play those brilliant diagonal passes. So it's tough. I think Konsa and Anderson for me are very, very close. The reason that I've got Konsa ahead of Anderson in the ratings, you can see Konsa for me is the 2nd best defender at 4.5. Anderson is the 4th. Is just simply because I think with Konsa, the fixtures are better over the first 8. You can see, according to Fantasy Football Hub, actually Aston Villa have the best fixtures in the league over the first 8. from a defensive perspective at least. So I think for me, Konsa just about edges it due to fixtures, but I think they're very close. You can actually rotate the two of them very well, which I'll explain in the next section, but I really like the two of those. We have to discuss Livramento. So as of me recording this, which is late on Tuesday, the 23rd of July, there are lots of rumours going around that Kieran Trippier has listed his house, he's moving, he's sold, he's going to sell his house, and he's moving away from Newcastle. And that's starting to gain momentum. Unless Newcastle sign a right back, it's going to be Livramento starting a right. It has to be. Because I think he deserves to start regardless. If Livramento then goes out to right back, this does a few things, right? It means that Dan Burn, even if he doesn't play centre-back, will be slightly more likely to play left-back, although there is Lewis Hall there. But it just means Livramento's basically nailed on, right? He becomes an incredibly solid option. Now, I was expecting his attacking data to be unbelievable last season, but it's not. It's been pretty average or poor, but a couple of those games he did play at left back, and he's more suited to the right back position. So I would go as far as saying if Trippier leaves and Newcastle don't sign a right back, Livramento will be nailed in my team. He's too good of an option not to pick. So I had to discuss him. But if Kieran Trippier stays at Newcastle, Livramento's a no-go for me, just because you've got Lewis Hall that can also play left back, and Dan Burn can play left back. And you have to remember the Premier League starts whilst the transfer window is still open. So it's going to be difficult to pick him with certainty long term. But if the option arises that he's going to play right back, I mean, you've almost got to pick him at that price. So I do like Livramento. But for now, maybe Dan Burn's the slightly safer pick. We then move on to the player that I've ranked number one, which is Mykolenko. But sadly, once again, a player that's rumoured to leave the Premier League. I don't know at the time of recording whether those hold much truth, but there are rumours, especially Napoli, and also a couple of clubs in the Ligue 1, that he could potentially end up moving. If he does, then of course he's a no-go. But the reason that I love him is he's the only definite starting defender for Everton under 5 million. Remember, Tarkowski and Branthwaite are both at 5, Mykolenko at 4.5. Everton were really solid defensively last season. Projected points are high. He's not got that much attacking threat, but he's very cheap for a team that just keep clean sheets, and they do under Sean Dyche. They'll continue to keep clean sheets as well. I think Mykolenko combining a little bit of attacking threat, and I think he'll have more on a more consistent basis if he doesn't pick up the injuries. Very good defensive data, good projected points. The fixtures are pretty good, especially if you have to play him every week. There aren't many awful fixtures in the first 8. As long as he doesn't get a move, and as long as we expect Everton to continue to defend pretty well, I think Mykolenko does stand out to me as the most consistent, safe, solid option. But obviously, if there are still rumours going on around Game Week 1, and as I said, transfer window will still be open, maybe it's not worth the risk. So I reserve my right to change that opinion, but at the moment, he does seem like a very good option. I've then got Murillo at Nottingham Forest. Now, this could be a number of Nottingham Forest defenders at 4.5 if we know they're going to start. But Murillo looks like the most likely to start every game when fit. 32 starts last season in the Premier League. Not much attacking threat, but Forest, and I had to double check this, Forest were the 4th best defence in the league last season for non-penalty expected goals conceded. Forest are just a very good defence. And it's the reason in all of my recent drafts, I've had the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper in my team. And who that is, I actually don't know. It's one of Miguel or Sells, but hopefully we find that out. It just seems smart to have a Forest defender. Now, the only reason Murillo is ranked at 7th in the Raptor ranking is just due he doesn't have much attacking threat. And we know defenders won't keep as many bonus points this season because the way the bonus point system has changed slightly. So, great defensive data, really good fixtures. Maybe he deserves to be slightly higher up. I just wish there was a defender that we knew would start every week that had insane attacking threat. Toffolo could be a great option, but we just don't know. I don't think anyway. Forest fans, let me know if you disagree, that he's fully nailed. But I like the idea of a Forest defender. Just to rattle off a couple of other options, Kilman has moved to West Ham. We're expecting him to start every game. Could be a decent option. You could go for a West Ham defender, but the fixtures really aren't there. They weren't good defensively last season. You could go for a Man United defender, Yoro or Martinez. Lots of people will like this because there's lots of Manchester United fans. I love the idea of it, but I can't sit here and justify picking a Man United defender over some of the others I've discussed. It's just not worth it. And especially Yoro's attacking data in his very short career thus far hasn't been particularly impressive. Martinez doesn't have much attacking threat because he's not particularly tall. So, yeah, I just think for me, I probably wouldn't go for a Man United defender. And then Van de Ven, if you want to save some money on the likes of Udogie and Porro. But look at Van de Ven's got no attacking threat. So, for me, if I'm to summarise all of that, and apologies for doing 15 minutes on 4.5 million Van Defenders, if you're still watching at this point, please do subscribe. I think Any of the following 8 defenders for me would be excellent picks. Mikalenko, Konsa, Burn/Livramento, Anderson, Robinson, Murillo, and Dunk. I have listed them in the order that at the time of me recording, I think from an objective perspective, not using my gut feeling, just listing based on the data we have, in this order, it is Mikalenko, Konsa, a Newcastle defender, and then Anderson. I think they're really probably the best picks. I've just got a bit of a feeling about Robinson. Murillo obviously playing for a very decent defence with good fixtures, and Dunk is just pretty consistent for some attacking returns. So let me know down below if you think I've missed anyone or missed any teams that I've not really discussed there. I'd love to know. I've probably missed someone out. Let's now take a look. If you have to own 2 4.5 million defenders and you want to start one of them each week, who are the best £4.5 million defenders to rotate? So guys, as I said, you might end up with a structure in your team where you've got like, I don't know, one of Trent, Gvardiol, Saliba, and we're going to discuss those a bit later. Maybe you've got another one or a 5 million defender. And in that final slot in your team, you've got one 4.5 and then maybe one on the bench. And you want to know who can rotate in those spots. Now, this isn't a definitive exhaustive list. I actually worked out, and I'm a bit of a nerd, I do this manually. There are tools out there to do this, but I do it manually. There were 15 different pairings that worked pretty much equally well, give or take a little bit. And I just think that these 5 stood out for me because I like the options and I just like the fixtures that you have available to you. So the different rotations that I like, Newcastle and Fulham rotate really well. Burn or Livramento and Robinson, those 2. You've then got Newcastle and Everton, and I think this will be a very popular pairing, assuming that everything moves right, like I said, in the transfer window. A Newcastle defender and Mikalenko. So again, either Burn or Livramento and Mikalenko. If you want to get a little bit spicier, Anderson and Leif Davis rotate really well. And we'll discuss those in a second. Then you've got Anderson and Konsa. That's probably the safest, and that's currently probably the one I favour the most. It's just really safe. Their minutes are both really good. They're playing for 2 really good defences. They rotate really well. And then also at the bottom, I've got Murillo and Davis. So again, if you want to get a little bit spicy with someone with some attacking threat, and then a defender playing for a very good team, I would argue fixtures-wise, that bottom one might be the best rotating sort of pair. So just to explain how this would work, and I don't want to patronise you, of course, I'm sure you understand how defensive rotations work. But the idea would be, like I said, you have 2 slightly more expensive defenders, and then that final spot in your team, you basically have for your 3rd and 4th defender 2 4.5s, and each week you just play one of them. So let's choose just a random example. Let's choose Burn and Robinson, the top one there. What you would do is in Game Week 1, you'd play Burn against Southampton at home. Robinson wouldn't play because he's got Man United away. In Game Week 2, you've got 2 pretty decent fixtures, but Robinson stands out against Leicester at home. Game Week 3, you play Robinson again against Ipswich away. So in the opening 3 game weeks, if you go for a Newcastle defender and Robinson, you get to play the 3 promoted teams, Southampton, Leicester and Ipswich. After that, you then play against Wolves away, Fulham away, Forest away, Everton away. Lots of away fixtures is the only thing. Brighton at home, Everton away, Brentford at home. So you can see with pretty much all of these rotations, you avoid any really difficult fixtures. I think the only one where there's a slightly difficult one is the Anderson-Konsa rotation because they've got Manchester United at home in Game Week 7, but it's not an awful fixture and it is a home fixture. I have found when I've been looking at this that Game Week 7 is the really tough one. Look at it. You've got Burn against Everton away. You've got Robinson against City away. You've got Mikalenko against Newcastle at home. Anderson against Liverpool at home. And you've got Murillo against Chelsea away. Most of the good 4.5 defenders have a really tricky fixture in Game Week 7. And you might think, I'll worry about that in Game Week 7. But if you can worry about it now, and you pick 2 players that can rotate really well, you might not have to make a defensive transfer. And let me tell you, being able to roll 5 transfers, if you can roll 5 transfers, and not only roll 5 transfers, but not have to use those 5 transfers on 4.5 defenders, you are going to be loving life because then you can use those transfers on bringing in Haaland for Salah and like rotating those. Or you can bring in a really nice cheeky differential in midfield, knowing that you've got more free transfers to take that player out. So I honestly think having a sit down and thinking really strategically about which defenders are nailed, which defenders are going to cause you the least issue moving forward, which defenders have strong fixtures, which defenders rotate well, getting that defence sorted. And of course, you can get really unlucky with injuries and players losing their spot, but I think it could be really useful, especially this season. And that's why I keep returning to, if I were to rotate, unless we just know for sure that one of Burn or Livramento's nailed, something like Anderson and Konsa might just serve you really nicely because they are both very nailed. And like I said, they play for good defences. And you just know, even if they don't have the best fixture in Game Week 7, you just know each week you can rely on either of them. And that is quite a nice feeling to have. So I'll leave it there. You can see, feel free to screenshot. I'm going to pose now. There you go. You can screenshot And obviously, let me know down below if there are any rotations that I've not listed here that you really like. Chelsea are a team that rotate very well because they have such strong fixtures. And in pretty much every week, you can play a Chelsea player. So if you can work out a Chelsea defender, they'll rotate really nicely. But I just think that these 5 stood out for me, and hopefully that's been helpful for you. So guys, moving on to the £5 to £5.5 million defenders. This section will be a lot shorter, I'm hoping anyway, based on that first one. Mainly because it's not that I don't like the defenders at this price point, but it is a bit of like an in-between price, right? You're not getting those super reliable premium options, but it feels like, why am I paying more for these guys than the 4.5? But let's discuss if it's worth it, right? So I've missed off a couple here, but I'll discuss throughout. But the player that tops the list again for non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 is Pedro Porro. And he is a player that I would like to squeeze in. I've got a couple of reservations. First, he's 5.5, right? So he's not only 0.5 more than those cheaper guys, he's a whole million more. And he's only then 0.5 cheaper than Gvardiol and Saliba. And they just weren't particularly good defensively last season, Spurs. So I have concerns there. The other thing to note is Porro picked up quite a lot of bonus points last season when his team conceded 2 or 3 goals. But now they are losing bonus points for goals conceded. I just don't think Porro will get as many bonus points. And without those bonus points for those attacking returns, I do just wonder if he's going to be quite as good of an option. And maybe Spurs do improve defensively, but his attacking data's great, but it's not like super elite. And also, he was a little bit frustrating at points. I like him. If he was 5, he's like a no-brainer, but that obviously shows that he's been priced correctly. And obviously, if he was 6, you'd say he's just not an option at all. So 5.5 is probably the right price for him. There's just something that doesn't feel quite right for me. And the other issue is after those opening 2 games, which are pretty decent, the fixtures do really start to tail off after that. So I think he's still a really nice option and maybe being overlooked slightly. I just wonder if I want to start the season with 5.5 Porro. I don't think so myself. A defender that has been in, I would argue, maybe 50 to 60% of my drafts is Munoz. He's not in my latest draft, and that's just because I want to save money for that attack. But his attacking data last season was pretty strong at 0.16 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. Again, Palace were the 5th best defence in the league last season. And he's been scoring goals for fun for Colombia. He got something like 4 or 5 goals for them in recent months. So I think he's a player that genuinely will get a lot of attacking returns this season and probably at points justify the extra money over someone like Anderson. I just wonder if I want to start the season with him at 5 million. The other issue I have with someone at 5 mil is I feel like I'm less likely to want to rotate them. If I have Munoz in my starting 11 and Konsa on the bench, yes, they rotate well, but then I'm like, well, I don't want to sub out a 5. I know that's not the way to think about it, but I'm like, if I'm rotating Munoz, well, then why not just pay 4.5 and rotate Anderson? But 4 assists he had last season in 16 starts for Crystal Palace. And like I said, he's been scoring a lot for Colombia. He's a player that I could see myself having in my draft. And at the moment, at that price between 5 and 5.5, I think he's the best defender. The third best for me is Maatsen. My issue is I just don't know if he's going to start. You've got Moreno, you've got Luca Dean, you've got 3 seriously good left backs for Villa, and I know they've paid a lot of money for him, and he's obviously going to be first choice, otherwise they wouldn't have bothered. Is he going to be eased in slightly? Is he going to start every game? And definitely once the UCL starts, he's not going to start every game. So I do have slight concerns around his minutes, and as a result, I'm probably not going to go there. But we spoke about that Aston Villa defenders could be really nice. I just wonder, like, would you just rather go for Anderson and Konsa rather than Munoz and Maatsen? Maybe you're someone that's chasing the upside and the attacking threat might be worth it. Tarkowski's on here. Branthwaite's not, just because Tarkowski's got more attacking threat than Branthwaite. Branthwaite's attacking threat is virtually non-existent. And I still think even though Tarkowski's got better attacking threat than Mykolenko, as long as Mykolenko stays, just pick him. I don't want to pick 5 million for an Everton centre-back. And I know last season they were great because they kept so many clean sheets. I think it was 13 clean sheets last season. I'm just not sure it's worth 5 mil for Tarkowski, and especially not for Branthwaite for me, unless Branthwaite really steps it up with the attacking threat. That being said, if Everton even keep 10 clean sheets this season, a clean sheet every few games, they probably will be decent options. It's just not them. It's not exciting. At 5 mil, I'd much rather go for someone like Maatsen or Munoz. I've got Dalot and Shaw in there. I guess we'll discuss them together. My Man United bias wants me to tell you that they are fantastic picks. But again, I've got reservations about the Man United defence. Yes, we've signed Yoro. Yes, we're looking to sign De Ligt. Yes, it looks like we're going to sign someone like Fofana or Ugarte as a CDM. And it's all coming together for Manchester United. But Ten Hag showed last season his defensive tactics were a mess. he was leaving people like Casemiro as a sole CDM when Casemiro can't run anymore. The way that we set up our team is just a maximum chaos. It's so exciting to watch, but for all of the wrong reasons from a defensive perspective. So I'm just not sure it's worth paying £5 million for a Man United defender. And I think if you are going to go for a United defender, go for Martinez or Euro and just hope that they score you a header at some point or get you an assist. As much as I love Dalot and Shaw, and I think they could be really good this season, I'm just a little bit hesitant to recommend them for now. The final two defenders are Walker and Schär. The issue with both of these is that I prefer defenders from their teams at different prices. So for Fabian Schär, he didn't have much attacking threat last season, honestly. 0.11 data. It's worse than Dan Burn. It's only slightly better than Livramento, and I expect Livramento to improve this season if he starts on the right. So it's not worth paying a whole extra million. Even if Schär was 5 million, still not worth it for me. I just wouldn't go there myself. And with Kyle Walker, I just don't know that you can justify paying 5.5 for Walker when Gvardiol's 6, and we'll discuss Gvardiol in the next section. Walker's just not got the attacking threat. He's not good for bonus points. He's a 2 and 6 point merchant. And even if he gets you a lot of 6 points, I'd rather go for someone with higher upside for me, or just a cheaper player. So I just can't justify either of those. So for me, if you're going to go for someone at this price point, it probably is Munoz. But I think special shout out to Porro because he could genuinely be a really good option once again this season. He's just a little bit expensive for me. So one of those top two, otherwise I'm probably not interested. So guys, finishing up with the big boys, and I think pretty much every draft I've seen has at least one premium defender. I would love to know down below in the comments how many of the players on this list here are in your current draft. I'm going to give you a bit of a spoiler for Friday's video. It might not be the same draft. I currently have 3 from this list. And you're going to say, what a waste of your budget. But you wait until you see this draft. It's brilliant. I've got 3 of these, and I don't feel like the attack has been compromised much at all. Well, it has, because I don't have Ollie Watkins. We'll discuss that on Friday. Make sure to subscribe. So from this list, all of these are brilliant options, right? You've got Trent, Robbo, Trippier, Gvardiol, Gabriel, White, Van Dijk, Saliba. Once again, this list has been ordered by a goal threat and assist threat, essentially. And really, you've got lots of 6s, plus White at 6.5 and then Trent at 7. So who's the best? Who should you go for? Obviously, I say obviously, if you're looking for someone with attacking threat, Trent is in a league of his own. Well, maybe not Trent. The Liverpool defenders are in a league of their own. So Trent's on 0.36 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. That means if he were to start 38 games, you'd expect maybe 12 to 13, maybe even 14 attacking returns for him, which is obviously remarkably good. And I think you could even see potentially more than that. So I think he's pronounced Geertruida. Apologies if I'm wrong. The right back that played under Arne Slot last season, not an overly incredible footballer with the ball at his feet, I don't think, from what I've seen. He had 13 attacking returns last season with 8 goals and 5 assists, playing as the right back in an Arne Slot system. Can you imagine one of the most gifted footballers of our generation with the ball at his feet playing a role that a defender that is good, don't get me wrong. From what I've seen, he's brilliant. But Trent is different gravy. You could see genuinely 15 to 20 attacking returns for Trent if he can start every game and stay fit, which is a big if based on what we saw last season, under Slot. I just think the upside with Trent is silly. I don't think there is a single other player in the entire game potentially that has the level of upside, because if you combine a decent number of clean sheets, which we might see under Slot, we'll have to wait and see there, with 15 to 20 attacking returns, he's one of very few defenders that could comfortably break like 230 to 250 points. So the more I think about it, the more I just can't go without Trent, especially with those opening fixtures for Liverpool. I mean, they've got Ipswich in Gameweek 1, but after that, the fixtures are really, really good. So you've got one of the most attacking, incredible footballers of our generation from a defensive perspective. They were the 3rd best defence in the league last season, Liverpool, with really good opening fixtures. Everything points towards Trent being a brilliant option at 7 million. And as you can see by the way I'm talking, for the last week, Trent hasn't left my draft. Now, you're not going to say I'm biased because I'm a Man United fan. I just think Trent is that good, and I think the upside is there to attack. With that being said, as you can see, Robertson put up near identical numbers to Trent last season. And it's also been the case for the last few years. He just puts up consistently about 0.3 non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90. So you look at this and you're like, well, I could save $1 million and go for someone with equal attacking threat. Also take some set pieces as well. The issue that we've got is 2 things. A few people are saying that Robertson might not be nailed this season. He's aging. He has declined with respect to his output in recent years. Klopp obviously loved him, but is Arne Slot going to love him in the new system? So It's not as simple as this, but I have watched quite a few. I'm really intrigued by Arnie Slot's philosophy. I find managers' philosophies and tactics very interesting. I don't really discuss it in my FPL videos as much. If you want to see more of that, let me know. But essentially what we're going to see under Arnie Slot is similar-ish, but not quite the same, as what we've seen with Pep and Arteta, where one of the fullbacks inverts, and of course that will be Trent, which means that for large spells, Robertson will essentially play as a left centre-back. It's not that simple, but let's say for this purpose, for the purpose of this video, it is. If Robertson's playing as a left centre-back, two things happen. One, that attacking threat from open play is not going to be anywhere near as high. Number two, is Joe Gomez not better to play that position? At left centre-back. Who would you prefer at left centre-back? I'd prefer Joe Gomez, personally. And Joe Gomez is very comfortable with the ball at his feet. And I think one of the most underrated players for Liverpool in the recent couple of seasons. He's been extremely solid. So I just wonder, are Robertson's minutes going to drop? And is his data going to drop? And if both those things happen, of course, Trent is the better option, especially if we potentially even see an uptick in Trent's attacking returns. So I just think for me, yes, the million saved is very tempting, but Trent is just different gravy. And I think especially under Arnie Slot, he's going to essentially be playing as a midfielder and not even a defensive midfielder. It's almost like, I would call it a defensive 8, which is like a central midfielder, but maybe a little bit more defensive than that. He's not playing as like in the pivot. He's playing slightly more attacking. So I really think Trent could be a brilliant option. That's why he's first. Van Dijk, you'll see, is, in my opinion, the worst defender on this list. He just hasn't had much attacking threat for Liverpool in recent seasons. And again, maybe that will change under Slot. Maybe they'll be aiming for him more from set pieces. I don't know. But he gets goals. But you can see here his data is one of the worst on this list. So I just think if you're going to go for a 6 million, maybe risk it with Robertson. Or just go for Trent or just save the money. I just don't think for me Van Dijk's the one. But you could disagree. Let me know down below. I've got Trippier on here. I won't discuss him much because the rumours seem pretty heavy that he's leaving. But if he doesn't, arguably one of the more underrated players at that price because his data's really, really good. I just, again, wonder, is he worth 1.5 million more than Dan Burn? Maybe. My concern is that Newcastle just aren't good enough defensively. You can see here, Arsenal, City and Liverpool were the best three defences in the Premier League last season for non-penalty expected goals conceded. Whereas Newcastle were 12th. So Newcastle just aren't a good defence. And if you're paying a premium price, you want clean sheets and attacking returns. So for me, Trippier's not the best option, but he could be good if he stays. I'll then discuss, let's go Gvardiol. Gvardiol's just about, in my pecking order, dropped below Trent, but it is very close. I just think the fixtures aren't as good. You can see that according to Hub, you've got Trent as the 4th best fixtures over the opening 8, Gvardiol with the 16th best. So Man City's fixtures aren't there. And his attacking threat, I don't think will ever quite be as good as Trent's because Trent is just elite. But at points last season, especially at the back end, the man was playing as a left winger. If we continue to see him playing as a left winger and we see that City's defensive data stays as good as it has been in recent seasons, Gvardiol will be an absolute steal at 6 million. Now, I have both, but if I were to only choose one at the moment, as you can see based on the Raptor ranking, for me, Trent is ahead of Gvardiol slightly at the moment, but that 1 million goes a long way. If I feel like I end up needing that in my attack, which I may well do, depending upon what we see in the rest of pre-season, then maybe I end up dropping Trent. But at the moment, like I said, I've got both. And not only do I have Trent and Gvardiol, I've also got an Arsenal defender. And spoiler alert, that is Saliba. And I know you're going to look at this and say, but Rosh, you've got Gabriel 4th, White 5th, and Saliba 6th in your Raptor ranking. How have you got Saliba? I'm just scared of minutes, and I don't want to pay 6.5 for White, is simply it. But if Gabriel and White start every game, along with Saliba, they will outscore Saliba. We saw that last season because, yes, the reason Saliba got so many points because he was very good for bonus points, but I don't think he'll get as many bonus points this season due to the changes. I think those more attacking defenders will get them, but also more attackers than defenders due to the changes in the bonus point system with fouls won and shots on target getting bonus points now. So I just don't think I think Saliba will be a 6-point merchant, which is great, by the way. 6 points is 6 points. But Gabriel and White, if they start, will be fantastic. The issue with Gabriel and White, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, Calafiori, looks like he's pretty much signed for Arsenal. You've got Yuri and Timber, who is back now. And by the way, an exceptionally gifted footballer. We didn't see that last season, but he deserves to be starting for Arsenal very, very soon. You've got I don't know all of the rumours about which players, Kivior, Zinchenko. There are rumours about them leaving, coming, staying, going. They might sign more players. I'm just not convinced. Like, is Timber going to play right back, left back? Is he staying on the bench? Could he play centre back? We saw in pre-season he played centre back. Calafiori is a centre back at heart, but can play left back very capably. He could step up into midfield in an inverted role. We just don't know. And I think the only thing we definitely know is Saliba's nailed because he's ridiculous. He is their best defender, and he will continue to get the best minutes. And I just think what I want from this Arsenal defender, I don't care for attacking returns. I'm not choosing an Arsenal defender because I think they're attacking. And if you're doing that, I think you're doing it wrong, because Gabriel and White, I know they got returns last season, but I mean, you've got Trent Robertson, Trippier, Gvardiol sat there with more attacking threat. You're not choosing an Arsenal defender for the attacking numbers. You're choosing them because they are clean sheet machines. And so if I think that, I want to have an Arsenal defender that will get me clean sheets and that I don't have to touch for as long as I want to, right? I can just keep Saliba in there and I know he's going to start every week. That for me just feels like a very, very good option. So I've got him ranked lower because I'm going off the basis if Gabriel and White start more games, they are better options. But for now, Saliba just feels safer. Also, I said Arsenal's fixtures aren't particularly good. And I mean, they're not great. Let me actually have a look at exactly what their fixtures are. Because at first glance, I was like, oh, they're not very good. But then if you look across the first 8, and the only reason I've chosen 8, by the way, is it's just a little bit longer term. Wolves, great opening fixture. Villa away, no. Brighton at home, potentially. They were so good at home last season. Spurs away, Man City away. Those kind of games, they kept a clean sheet against City away last season, so you never know. Then it's Leicester, Southampton, Bournemouth. So you could say to me, and I thought about this myself, just go without them for the first 5, because I only see 1 or 2 clean sheets in the first 5. But let's say they keep 2 or 3. Then in game week 6, they've got Leicester, Southampton, Bournemouth. You're going to want one then. So why am I booking in transfers and going up and risking that Arsenal won't keep a clean sheet? I'm not so sure. So that's why an Arsenal defender's made it back in. But then, if I'm putting that all together, how do I rank these premiums? I do not believe that any of the Arsenal defenders are as good as Trent and Gvardiol. So the only way for me at the moment that an Arsenal defender makes it in is if I go for a full premium defence of Trent, Gvardiol, Saliba, which does mean there are some sacrifices in the attack. So there's my perspective on the premiums, but I genuinely think you can't go wrong with most of these. Trent. I've got a good feeling about Trent this season. So guys, there you have it. That is the best. Those are the... That is my best defenders video for Gameweek. I'm going to leave this in. I'm going to make a habit of this. I keep leaving the bloopers in the end. I'm just going to leave that in. These are the best defenders to own in Game Week 1 for me. If you did enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe. And as I said at the start of the video, if you do want to support me, but also get access to the best fantasy football site, in my opinion, do check out Fantasy Football Hub. You can currently get 50% off if you use the link in the description. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.